Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the sources to unpack a really wild story: how a man became one of the most powerful leaders in the Middle East without ever holding a single public office. So, here's the big question we're looking at today. How does someone with no official title, no formal position, become a nation's leader? We're talking about a man who spent decades in the shadows, a figure often called the Shadow Prince. How on earth did he maneuver himself to the very top? Well, this is the story of how he did it. And let me tell you, his journey pulls back the curtain on how power really works inside the Islamic Republic. It's a system built not so much on votes, but on something else entirely: proximity, loyalty, and yeah, absolute control. Okay, so let's get right into it. The central puzzle here is this guy they call the Shadow Prince. For decades, he was one of the most powerful people in Iran, but he had no official title. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, as the sources lay out, he was basically a ghost in public. You'd never see him, but behind the scenes, oh, he was the key to everything. He wasn't a minister, he wasn't a president. He was something way more powerful in a system like Iran's. He was the direct channel, the one and only avenue to the ultimate authority. He was, in a word, the gatekeeper. Right. But that kind of influence, that doesn't just appear out of thin air. To really get how he built it, you've got to go back. You have to see how his life was forged in the fires of revolution and war. See, he wasn't just born into power, he was born of the movement itself. And you can just see it laid out right here. His life story is the story of the Islamic Republic. Think about it. He's born into an activist family. He comes of age during the 79 revolution. He joins the Revolutionary Guard. And then boom, in 1989, his dad becomes the most powerful man in the country. Every single step is tied directly to the state. And that military service, that's absolutely crucial. It's not just some line on a resume. It was his, what the sources call, revolutionary capital. In a state where sacrifice is the ultimate currency, his time in the war gave him the credentials, the street cred, and most importantly, the personal connections inside the security forces. That network, well, that would become his entire power base. So, with that kind of background, his path to the top was never going to be through elections. No way. It was all about proximity. After his father's rise, he planted himself right in the absolute nerve center of the state. So, in the 90s, he starts working inside his father's office. But you gotta understand, this isn't just some office with a desk and a phone. It's more like a command post, a central hub that controls everything: the military, the intelligence agencies, the judiciary, the whole shebang. And from there, he could shape events without ever leaving a single public footprint. And this quote from Reuters, it just nails it. He was his father's gatekeeper. His power wasn't official, right? It all came from being that gatekeeper. If you wanted to get to the supreme leader, you had to go through the sun. And let me tell you, in a system that's super opaque, that kind of access is worth more than any formal title you could ever have. Okay, so once you control the access, what's next? Well, you start shaping the outcomes. And that's exactly what happened. In the 2000s, Mojtaba goes from being this quiet gatekeeper to something else: an invisible kingmaker, accused of steering the entire country's politics from deep within the shadows. And these two elections, 2005 and 2009, they were absolutely pivotal. The allegations were flying, first, that he rigged the system for Ahmadinejad's surprise win, and then that he was the guy backing the brutal crackdown on protesters in 2009. Now, his father denied it all, of course, but it didn't matter. The perception was sealed. Mojtaba was the hardliners guy, the face of repression. And you know what? He built the network to back it all up. As you can see right here, his roots just spread deeper and deeper into the security state. We're talking the elite Revolutionary Guards, the Baji militia, and then he marries the daughter of a top conservative, cementing his place in the hardline establishment. This wasn't just a network of buddies, it was an entire ecosystem, carefully built to support his eventual rise to power. And this is the ultimate paradox. In 2019, the U.S. Treasury actually sanctioned him, but not for any official role he held, because he didn't have one. He was sanctioned for, and I'm quoting here, representing the supreme leader. Just think about that for a second. He was so powerful that foreign governments were targeting him, even though on paper he was just some guy, a private citizen. So all of this leads us to a massive paradox for the Islamic Republic itself. His entire path to power seems to fly in the face of the very revolutionary principles the state was supposed to be founded on, right? I mean, his reputation for being behind all that repression made him a terrible choice if you wanted to, reconcile with the people. But for the hardliners, the ones who prize control above all else, well, it might have actually reinforced his value to them. It's wild. But what hurt him with the public probably strengthened his position with the deep state, the security core of the regime. And if you look at the history, there's a precedent for this kind of thing. His own father, Ali Khamenei, rose to power back in '89 with a mid-level clerical rank, Hujjatul Islam, which was technically considered too low for the top job. So when critics point to Mujtaba's own mid-level rank, his supporters can just turn around and say, hey, this system has shown before that when it needs to, religious doctrine will bend to political power, not the other way around. And in those final years, you can see the path just being deliberately cleared. First, a media campaign kicks off, and suddenly outlets start calling him Ayatollah, a really high-ranking religious title, obviously trying to boost his credentials. Then, in a twist of fate, his main potential rival, President Raisi, dies in a helicopter crash, removing the single biggest obstacle. You can just see it. Piece by piece, all the speculation was being turned into cold, hard reality. So in the end, his succession really shows you how real power in Iran can be built completely outside of the formal system, only to be stamped official at the very last minute. His story isn't about charisma or winning elections. Nope. It's about slowly, quietly accumulating influence through family, through security networks, and through that all-important inner office authority. And all of that leaves us with this one huge, defining question for the future of the Islamic Republic. Think about it. Iran's revolution was all about overthrowing a king, a monarch. So has it now, after all these years, simply crowned a prince?